Hi, my name is Garry Hnatowich. I'm co-research director of ICDC. And I'm obviously standing in front of a research trial that is looking at corn. And this project is year one of a 3-year project being funded by the Agriculture Development Fund, or ADF, and the Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association. And that funding is certainly greatly acknowledged and gratefully acknowledged. So corn, in my mind, I still consider corn as a specialty crop for Saskatchewan. Certainly we don't have the acreage that our neighboring provinces in Alberta or Manitoba have, but I think we're at that point where there's interest, or increasingly there's interest in corn production within the province. Last few years, I've certainly seen more corn being produced on the eastern side of the province. And certainly, you know, there's areas, for example, the dairy area north of Saskatoon, for example, corn has been grown, silage corn has been grown for a while. In this area, an outlook under irrigation, corn is of interest, again, primarily for feed, and a lot of the material here is either cut for silage and or it's grazed. So there is interest. The yields, that the breeders are doing tremendous job on advancing the maturity. So we could be looking at corn that will have respectable yield under lower corn heat units and earlier maturing. We may see 80, 70 to 90 day corn, in fact. So there has been an increased advancement in corn. That being said, there's a dearth of information if you go into the literature on corn production for Saskatchewan. You know, there's just not a lot of information there on agronomics to any great degree. This study is trying to address at least one of those issues, and in particular, nitrogen fertilizer additions to corn production. Again, go into the Saskatchewan government's website and it talks about, for something like grain corn, you know, the corn will remove maybe 1.5 pounds of nitrogen per bushel of yield. Or in terms of fertilizer recommendations, again, vague, 150 to 200 pounds of nitrogen. Well, you know, at today's price of nitrogen, I'd like to know, do I need 150? Or is it economically viable to add an additional 50 pounds of nitrogen? So hopefully this trial will do that. What we have are 2 different corns. We've got immediately, I'm standing in front of some grain corn. Off to my left, your right, we have silage corn. Within both of these, we've got the same rates of nitrogen. We've applied 0 and then increments of 50 all the way up to 250 pounds of N per acre. So 50, 100, 150, 200, and 250 pounds of N. The intent of the study is to develop yield response or yield response curves to these increasing rates of nitrogen. But over and above that, we're going to delve a little bit deeper. Ideally, we will start, as of next week, chopping some of this material down, whole plant material, grinding it up, and looking for total nitrogen uptake. We will try to correlate that to soil test nitrogen. So at the end of 3 years, hopefully what we can be able to do is develop target yield nitrogen recommendations. So you as a producer, if you're interested in producing 110 bushels per acre of grain corn or X tons per acre of silage corn, we will be able to give you a recommendation based on a soil test report. So as I say, we will go in and start doing that. We've got, we're standing in front of an irrigated trial. Over and above that, we've got 3 irrigated trials in the Outlook region, South Saskatchewan River or Irrigation District. But over and above irrigation, which is our primary focus, we also have 3 trials where we're duplicating these under dry land conditions. over and above that, although it wasn't written into the protocol of the study, what I would like to do is also, over the course of the next 3 years, have these trials situated on 2 types of ground. That which has had corn produced in the past, or those soils which haven't. Because it's my hypothesis that, corn is a deep-rooted crop. If Ted can just pan up, I'm 6 feet tall, and you can get an indication of the height of the corn, behind me. There's such thing as a root to shoot ratio. And in cereals in general, it's usually 50-50. So, given the height of the corn, if you look at the height of the corn, we generally consider there's an equal depth of root below that corn. So, theoretically, this corn could be rooting down to 8 feet. If it's virgin ground, never had corn on it before, my hypothesis is that it's going to be taking that nitrogen below which a traditional cereal crop of wheat, barley, or oats has not been able to depth, or to the roots haven't been able to grow to that depth. So I think it will mitigate or minimize the response we're seeing to some extent to the fertilizer addition, versus those pieces of ground which have had corn or a history of corn production in the past, where those first 1 or 2 crops has been able to go and explore that deeper subsoil and remove the nitrogen that may have accumulated over there or within that depth over the years. So there could be 2 types of response, and I'm just kind of interested in seeing if we can tweak that out of the system. And maybe have 2 recommendations. For virgin ground, here's your recommendation in year 1, maybe even year 2. But if you've had a history of corn, here's going to be your target nitrogen recommendations for a specific yield goal within corn. Stay tuned. We will have more of an update over the winter as to the results in year 1. But again, keep in mind this is a 3-year trial.